and we are live.
It hasn't come up on YouTube. Do I need to refresh it? All right, you are now live, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. I'm Chair Anna Sexton, and I would like to welcome you to the May 24th, 2021 Neighborhood Advisory Committee virtual meeting. We will now call our meeting to order. The Neighborhood Advisory Committee consists of 9 members, all appointed by the City Council with representation from specific community sectors. Members shall be residents of the city or the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction and shall reflect the socioeconomic diversity of Asheville. The term of office is 3 years. The committee was established to advise the City Council on neighborhoods within the City of Asheville's zoning and planning jurisdiction. The committee shall have the following powers and duties. 1, to develop rules and bylaws for the conduct of its business, including but not limited to meeting schedules, officers, voting, and subcommittees. 2, to develop a plan to strengthen neighborhood identity and resilience and to facilitate communication and cooperation between Asheville's neighborhoods and city offices. 3, to develop benchmarks and standards by which progress towards implementing the plan can be measured. And 4, to work on special projects that are consistent with the goals of the committee as assigned or directed by City Council. All committee members and staff are participating virtually, and we appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We also have the option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801 and entering meeting code 9247. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will now go through and introduce all the committee members and staff who are participating virtually. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you are not speaking. And when you have a question or would like to speak, click the raise hand icon. And when recognized, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute your phone after you are done speaking. And committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. And also note whether you're serving at large or according to a specific zip code. My name is Anna Sexton, and I'm the chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, and I represent zip code 28806. And Bobette Mays, you're up.
My name is Bobette Mays, and I'm the vice chair. I'm a member at large, and I live in the Shiloh area with the zip code of 28803. Good evening to everyone.
Peter Abzug.
Good evening. I'm Peter Abzug. I live in zip code area 28805, and I am an at-large member of this committee.
Thank you. Greta Bush is not in attendance tonight. I believe Sharon Sumrall is not here yet either. Joe Fiacola.
I'm Joe Fiacola. I live in the Weekend neighborhood in the 28801 zip code.
Pastor Spencer Hardaway is also unable to attend this evening, so we'll go to Mike Wasmer next.
My name is Mike Wasmer. I'm an at-large member. I live in the Southside neighborhood, 28801.
And Wendy Hayner.
Hello, everyone. I am representing zip code 28804 North Asheville, and my name is Wendy Hayner.
Thanks, everyone. I'm glad we're able to make it tonight and we have quorum. Additionally, we have NACS City Council Liaison, Kim Roney. So, Kim, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here and for your service.
And then also in attendance are our city staff members who work really hard to get our information out to us. Brenda Mills is our staff liaison to the Neighborhood Advisory Committee.
Good evening, all.
And Jeremy Lett is our neighborhood services specialist with the city.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so to help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of our agenda aloud. And, just a reminder again to committee members to click the raise hand icon and to be recognized to speak. And then please state your name each time you comment. Just a reminder that the public is listening on the phone, and this keeps them up to date on the order of the meeting and who's commenting or speaking. And also, additionally, just ask that committee members try to refrain from using the chat function, since the chat box is not accessible to all meeting attendees. Our Vice Chair, Babette Mays, is our timekeeper for each meeting, and she will signal when the discussion time listed is expired. And so we'll begin today with the approval of minutes for both our February 22nd, 2021 meeting and then our April 26th, 2021 meeting. So I'll go ahead and start with our February 22nd meeting. Want to make sure that everyone has had the opportunity to read through those minutes. You should have. The draft went out a long time ago, and I do need a motion on this one for approval of these minutes. Does anyone have
Motion,
Okay,
motion to approve the February minutes.
thanks, Michael. Do we have a second?
I'll
I
second.
second that.
That was Babette. Okay, we have motion by Michael and then a second by Babette. All right, now I will go down the list of everyone and so that we can take a vote. Sorry, just give me a second here. All right, Anna Sexton, I'll go ahead and say aye. Babette Mays,
Aye.
Peter Abzug,
Aye.
Joe Fiacola,
Aye.
Mike Wasmer,
Aye.
and Wendy Hayner.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to our minutes from our April 26th meeting / work session. So once you all feel so moved, I do need a motion and a second for that as well.
I will make a motion to approve the April 26th retreat minute.
Great, thank you, Wendy. And do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, we've got Peter with a second. On the list again, Anna Sexton, aye. Babette Mays,
Aye.
Peter Abzug,
Aye.
Joe Fiacola,
Aye.
Mike Wasmer,
Aye.
and Wendy Hayner.
Aye.
Great, thanks everyone. I'll just quickly go ahead and review today's agenda. No motion is needed, but we'll just go over quickly what we have on our agenda for folks listening in. So today, we'll receive staff updates from Brenda Mills. We'll acknowledge public comment. We'll discuss unfinished business pertaining to our fiscal year 22 work plan, and then also board and committee vacancies for the remainder of 2021. And then under new business, we've got our NAC bylaw revision working group update, our neighborhood hero working group update, and then discussion, sort of open discussion regarding how to move forward with planning for a neighborhood festival or conference or issues forum. We'll also receive NAC member updates from members who serve on other boards, including the Open Space Task Force and the Multimodal Transportation Commission. And then we'll also discuss agenda items for our next meeting or future meetings. So with that, moving on to acknowledging public comment. Sorry, there we go. I'm operating with a lot of windows on one small screen. We did not receive any voicemails or email through publicinput.com for public comment for this meeting. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next item, which is staff activities and updates from Brenda Mills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be pretty quick. One of the things I want to highlight for NAC is that a couple of pivotal things are happening. Tomorrow night is City Council, beginning at 5 p.m. The city manager will present her proposed budget for FY22, and then there will be a public hearing in the next 2 weeks, the second week in Tuesday in June 9th. Will be the public hearing, and then there will be a vote at the end of June for the budget. I would ask you to, and I'll send it out tomorrow, maybe when I follow up on this meeting. There is a summary of the budget. While there isn't a lot of new stuff, it's been proposed that we have funding to do neighborhood grants. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah. It's amazing what a little bit of money can do in a neighborhood. So I'm really excited. And I think we got a little bit more than what we had, thought. So we'll see how it all ends up, but really excited about that. But that's all in that summary, and I'll send that to you. Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods has been writing some recommendations on how to do better neighborhood meetings for development. And so we met with them, Neighborhood Services, Development Services, Chris Collins, and Planning all met with Ken to kind of start having some discussion around that. Development Services was already working on it. We're looking at giving developers a standard for how they should have meetings and what we need from those meetings to kind of really be as transparent, as possible. We've had at least one project that I've been involved in that we thought was one thing and it ended up being another. Well, then we made them go back out to the community to really talk to them about what is the project. And that's some of the stuff that we were really kind of trying to address. I'll send you a link to Simplicity. Please start, just go in there and kind of play with it. That's where they can voluntarily put their neighborhood meetings on a calendar. So we're looking going forward, making that mandatory. Street renaming, we're going to do very informal. Going to hit this kind of 3 ways. We're going to hit it informally with the African American community. We are talking with our boards and commissions, specifically African American Heritage Commission, who's given us their opinion on, the whole idea of street renaming. And then number 3, we're going to do some polling on Nextdoor, which I think will be really cool. We've not done that before, so that will hit all of our Asheville areas. And then there's a survey that will kick off on Wednesday, so I'll send that to you as well. So you'll have that. It is 2 little questions and some demographics. So hopefully we can get a lot of participation around that. And then the reparations sessions begin June 3rd. They will be in person at the Thomas Wolfe Theater. I will send you that information. And I think I heard they're going to be hybrid, but for right now, all that information will be on the project page that I listed there. I want to commend Jeremy. He has just jumped in, both hands, both feet, everything. Really kind of helping be an additional arm to what we're doing in community and oriented problem solving. And we have lots of problems. And I always tell people, maybe trash isn't your problem, but it was in Iwana. So Jeremy went over and helped in Iwana, which is Kim's neighborhood. And then he's done some really tremendous work in our housing areas. We're really trying to get them to do the plan on a page, to really kind of document what they want to do in their housing areas. He's been working with the staff from sanitation, city manager's office, our community development office, APD community liaison on the homelessness relocation. Because, there was a couple of weeks ago, we had a really bad cold snap. So trying to get those people relocated, really has learned a lot on the ground. He's amazing. And so I continue to be very proud to have him as part of our staff. So we'll be working more as we go along. We've got a lot of things planned with some community groups to kind of help with some summer stuff. Last year we were kind of locked down. It was really difficult for kids, especially. So he's working with some multiple groups to kind of put together some stuff working with Parks and Rec and some community groups to kind of help with some of that. And then that's it for me. Unless there's some questions, I am all done. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Brenda. I do actually have a question. Do y'all have any idea what the neighborhood grants might look like at this point? Or is it just sort of in the stage of we're hoping to get money for this and then we'll start developing sort of the process? And
We've had different discussions prior to the lockdown. Myself, Dawa, and I'm sorry, 2020 took my memory, I'm sorry. But it's looking like what they basically do for Tipping Point. So we're not really sure of the size of the grant. We're thinking $5,000. Tipping Point grants are excellent. This is the 5th year. I've served on that committee for 4 years. But ours will be a little bit different. Tipping Point is for, and it's like it stated, it tips the scale on a little grassroots project. We are looking at awarding neighborhoods funding to help with neighborhood stuff. Burton Street needs a pattern book, some more funding for that. They are looking at a sign for their community. East End has been working on a pantry. I mean, each neighborhood has some different things that they are doing, but we have not written up anything. As soon as Jeremy and I are going to start working on that in the next few weeks, and we'll be bringing it to Neighborhood Advisory for you to take a look at it. Okay.
that's awesome.
That's a great question. Thank you.
I think I saw that Joe raised his hand. So Joe.
Yeah, I had a question. When does it look like we'll be going back to live in-person meetings?
So I'm thinking City Council will begin sometime in June, and I haven't heard about boards and commissions. I will let you know that as soon as I know. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer, but I don't.
Just still taking it, I think, week by week. So I do know that we are looking to take live public comment at our June meeting, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So thanks, Brenda. All right, let me see where we are now. So we'll go ahead and jump into our unfinished business this evening, which is reviewing and approving, if we're ready to do that, the draft work plan for fiscal year 2022. And that was a document that was provided in our meeting packets. And this document is goals that, and Brenda, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add, that were put together based on our meeting minutes from April and looking at the various really topics that we covered at that point. So I guess we just go ahead and open the floor now to see if anyone has any questions or comment.
Are you, Anna, referring to the committee goals for 21-22? Yes.
Yes, yeah, sorry, that's great. Thanks, Brenda, for holding that up.
This was a draft. I took a shot at your wonderful, all the notes that Joe took. And so if you would take a few minutes just to read it, make sure I've stated things as you want it to be. It's not like it's a etched in stone thing, because it should be a living document. So if you decide to change something later, it's okay. But if you could just take a look at it, let me know I've hit the right spots. That would be great.
Thanks, Brenda, and welcome, Sharon. Right now we are on the agenda item for the Neighborhood Advisory Committee goals.
I haven't. Sorry, I'm late.
We're glad you're here. So we're just opening it up for discussion and questions. And Brenda, this is ultimately the document that we include with, like, in our report to City Council next year as well.
You will do an annual report, and some of those things that you accomplish will be in that report. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Joe has his hand raised.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. The first two items on this list are things that are happening in the current year and not in the 21-22 calendar year. Also, the bylaws call for us to to have an annual report approved at the August meeting. So there's really no urgency to get one done today unless it's to get done for the 2021 year, which we're finishing in the next meeting.
These are the goals for the fiscal year 2022 work plan, as I understand it. So,
okay, well, the very first one says that the bylaws should be approved at the May 2021 meeting, which is in the current year. And I know that's a later agenda item, but it's on this list for a goal for next year.
Well, and we can take it off. This is a draft, so it's not a problem.
Okay, also under the second one, looking at the representation by zip codes, the last one, consider Article 2, Section 1, purpose, and it should include more than just advise City Council on neighborhoods. That is the exact text that is in the original founding documents from City Council and should be under the bylaws, and we cover that in the bylaws, so that needs to be moved up.
That came up around your discussion of representation, so that's why I put it there. So you want it moved up to the bylaws and then not put in there at all, is what you're saying?
Yes, it should be in the top section.
Okay.
I have a quick question, just for clarification. Under the look at NAC's representation by zip codes, the last bullet point, saying a draft will be provided at upcoming meetings for NAC's discussion. Does that mean a draft of this entire document or a draft of any sort of amendments to potential representation of NAC?
I actually don't know. So
Okay.
maybe we need to just take that sentence out because I was pasting a lot of stuff.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I feel fine taking that out. Does anyone have any other comments or questions about this document? Go ahead, Joe.
In the past, when we've done work plans, we've articulated what the goal was and how the action steps would achieve that goal, which would help us in benchmarking. I don't see the goals on this document. And at the last meeting, we didn't have time to go over a draft work plan that I laid out. Not that I'm precious about that, the information on that, but it's a checklist that we can approve or disapprove or edit as we please. But it was in that format with stating what the goal is and then what the steps are we're taking this year to as a work plan to achieve them.
Joe, I misunderstood what that document was because I think I got it before. Did you send it right before we had the retreat, right?
Yeah, it was included in our documents for the last meeting, but we didn't have time to go over it because the retreat went on so long because of the presentation from planning.
It's up to you guys, but if you would like for me to take another stab at merging those two documents, I'd be glad to do that. And you can look at it again in June.
I move to table this approving of this plan until the next meeting, so that we have time to go over it in detail and get a good copy of it.
Brenda, do we need to go through getting a second and making a motion on that?
We didn't need a motion at all because unless you're voting to approve it, we just move. You're not going to take any action today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like, I think what you captured today or in this document was pretty comprehensive based on the meeting minutes from the month of April. But also, since we did not really acknowledge some of the thoughts and ideas in Joe's document that he sent out, maybe we can take an opportunity to merge some of that together.
And I just want to encourage every member, if you see some slight or something forgotten, please go ahead and say something early, because we'll definitely, that's why your stuff is sent out as soon as we can. But thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, Brenda. Wendy, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a suggestion at the beginning of this document. If we could write the word draft at the top so that it doesn't look like it's the actual document and this is a working document. And I would like to see the word draft.
You got it.
Thank you.
Joe, I see your hand raised. Do you still, or is that from last time, or in your hand?
It was from the previous time. There is one more thing on the on that document, the next to last item, issues forum on noise and on traffic we've already done, so we'll need to change those topics to different issues if they're going to be considered for issues forums.
Got it. I do.
So I'll reword that, what I did in putting that in there, because we have new members. Most of them were not there when we did these issues forms. So I'll reword that to say examples of prior issue forms. I'll reword that. Yeah, that's what I intended to do. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
All right. Last call for questions or comments on the draft goals for fiscal year 2022 before moving on. All right. I don't see any other hands raised, so we will now move on to the board and committee vacancies for 2021. And sorry, let me pull up my information here. So applications are due for the various boards and committee vacancies on May 31st. I know, Mike, your term is set to expire on July 1st. However, you are eligible for reappointment, and that I do believe you gave confirmation of interest in wanting to do that back at the February meeting, but just want to double check one more time because apparently I need to explicitly email the city to say that that's the case.
Yes, I would. I, Mike Wasmer, will serve another term.
Okay, great. Will do. I will take care of that then. Pastor Hardaway and Joe Fiacola are not eligible for reappointment, and we will certainly miss the service and the institutional knowledge brought by both members. So with that said, we should be receiving applications around this, I think, first or second week in June for whoever has submitted application to NAC. And then we can go ahead and hopefully have things lined up for our June meeting to make new appointments. And so, again, please share with your networks that we will have 2 vacancies, one for the 28801 zip code and one for the 28803 zip code. Thank you, Joe and Pastor Hardaway, for your service. And we look forward to one more meeting with you both at our June meeting.
And Madam Chair, I'm not sure, but I think Joe raised his hand again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, the bylaws and the initial documentation says that the members shall be residents of the city or the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction and shall reflect the socioeconomic diversity of Asheville. I don't know if we want to continue that in our bylaws. I don't think we ever evaluate people's socioeconomic background in making these appointments or recommendations. And I'm also not sure that the socioeconomic diversity jibes with the equity focused lens that we're looking at everything through now. So I raise a question on that point, but which should come up in when these appointments are being made and talked about. So it's an issue I'm raising. I don't expect an answer, but it's something that needs to be addressed, I think.
Do we want to go ahead and segue into the new business where we're talking about NAC bylaw revisions and go over the document that was put together with the deletions and suggestions based on the working group, but also bring up that point that you just raised as well, Joe?
Okay.
Okay. Great. So let's go ahead and move into our new business, and I will go ahead and turn it over to the NAC bylaw revision working group. And that was composed of Babette Mays, Joe Fiacola, Pastor Spencer Hardaway, and Peter Abzug. So turning it over to you all for an update.
Okay, everyone's received a copy of the draft version, where it's called final version because it's gone through a couple of different iterations. I can explain each one of the suggested changes, but I'll open it up to questions first. I assume everybody's seen it and had a chance to read it. And there are 19 of the suggested changes. I draw particular attention to number 16 and number 13. Number 13 is under Section 2, Article 4 meeting, Section 2 annual meeting. It says the annual meeting of the NAC shall be the regular meeting of the NAC that occurs in August or the first meeting thereafter. At annual meetings, in addition to regular business of NAC, officers shall be elected and should include setting the meeting schedule and annual work plan. I've got it written as final work plan, but I think annual is more accurate for that one. The reason for that is that there is other required business at the annual meeting than just electing officers, which was in the previous version of those minutes. And we should consider moving it up from August to July. I would accept changes on that or discussion on that. I would also suggest a semi-annual report be produced after the first 6 months of the year because of the change in personnel. That's when personnel changes. New people, 3 people rotate off and 3 people rotate on July 1st. So it'd be easier to get all that information in a half-year report and addend it to the annual report in January. The number 16 is let's see, it's Article 4, Section 7, Order of Business. It states that all business and matters before the NAC shall be transacted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. I've added some deliberations may be better served by other consensus models at the discretion of the chair, and consider that a parliamentarian may be needed if we stick with Robert's Rules of Orders. The only other thing that that bothered me personally about this, but from 2013 when I joined this committee, was that the founding documents say, in quotes, that the name of the organization shall be, quote, the Asheville Neighborhood Advisory Committee. Now, the initials of that are ANAC, but in our bylaws it became NAC. Now, it's just a little stickler for me. However, I found that in the second document, 13-57, we are referred to as Neighborhood Advisory Committee and not Asheville Neighborhood Advisory Committee. So I feel better about changing our bylaws to say the name of the organization shall be Asheville's Neighborhood Advisory Committee, and that clears up the stickler in me for getting things pitch perfect. Also, in Article 1, Section 2, I've changed the name to membership. The NAC shall consist of 9 members appointed by the City Council with representations from specific community sectors as follows, and then it lists the different zip code. The S was left off of representations, implying that these people represent these zip codes. Now, I've been looking at the zip codes, I've been looking at the map. The 28801, which has been characterized as the Central District, really extends from W.T. Weaver Boulevard all the way down to Meadow Road. All of that is in 28801, and it's not just Central. There are almost 18 different neighborhoods in that zip code, whereas the North 28804 has about 8, the East 28805 has about 8, the South, which includes Kenilworth and Biltmore Village all the way down to the airport, has about 18 as well, and West has, I think, about 12. So it's, well, so if we're going to be assigning representatives of zip codes, we need to be aware of where those zip codes are, and not just assume that that they follow, say, the police districts, north, south, east, west, and central. In the work plan that we just tabled, where it says consider Article 2, Section 1 purpose, and it should include more than just advise City Council on neighborhoods, that is the exact text of the original founding documentation. It says that we shall that they shall advise City Council on neighborhoods. Doesn't include anything else. So that really frees us to expand our tasks and our mission to anything that is included in there, and not be limited by education and whatever the other things were, communication, helping. All of those do fall into advising on neighborhoods. Are there any questions on anything else?
Wendy, please go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to ask Joe a question, please. Joe, is it possible that the members that we have that are at large be helpful or assigned one of those zip codes that has so many neighborhoods in it, like 28801 or South, so that they can help start new neighborhoods committees, and that way they would be instead of just in a quandary as to where to go, they would be helpful in those zip codes.
I would suggest that that's something that can happen in a work plan when you decide who's doing what task. You know, we don't really assign. Well, the chair and vice chair are elected, so the at-large members can be assigned at a later date. I don't know that there's a strong reason for including them in this.
Bobette, I see your hand up as well. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to Wendy. In the South 2803 and 2870, I think it's 04, that Pastor Hardaway has, and I'm an at-large member, but I live in Shiloh, so we are gathering. So I do talk to the people in Oakley. So that is, we do work together. I think that maybe the people that are at large, if they would kind of work in some parts of their neighborhood, right outside their neighborhood, instead of having to assign them, I just think that's more, you know, because we reach out further than whatever he does with 2803, how that spectrum. We just haven't reached out. Maybe we need more for Kenilworth. We haven't done that, but we stretch out, and we're even trying to move into the Arden area. So that's just because I'm at large.
Right.
Brenda, please go ahead.
I'm unmuted. What I was going to say is your zip codes and your representation can only be changed by City Council. That was a council resolution. So if you decide that you want to do something different, you know, we certainly can do that. We just need to take it back to City Council. And it was pretty, you know, over the years, I'm sure it's ebbed and flowed, but it took us, what, two tries to find someone in Wendy's 28804 zip code. So sometimes it can get a little, so having at-large members kind of allows you not to have to be stuck in a specific area. I don't know if that's what they were trying to do, but if you decide to do that, we just have to take that back to city council. No problem.
Brenda, I think you make a great point about the at-large members, and I agree with the edits to item number 2, and also being a stickler, just saying shall be Asheville's Neighborhood Advisory Committee. But then moving on to number 3, I'm comfortable with changing representation to membership and leaving it as is under number 4, I guess. Or yeah, I'm just trying to stay with how the document is laid out. With the language that says shall reflect the socioeconomic diversity of Asheville, I think, or I'm assuming, I'm understanding where council was coming from when including that language. Shall is very different than should. And I'm wondering, maybe one amendment that I could offer is, cutting off the sentence after extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. And then something I just jotted down and I'm open to comments is, when making recommendations for appointments, NAC should consider how new membership promotes socioeconomic diversity.
I have to jump in there and say that shall reflect socioeconomic diversity of Asheville is the exact text of the resolution that founded us. So that, again, would have to go to City Council for approval for a change.
Gotcha. Okay. And this is Anna again. Joe, because you've been doing a deep dive into this, and you maybe have already gone over this, but I've been making notes and reviewing while you're talking. Are there any other items in this document moving forward that would require a new resolution from City Council if we wanted to make changes?
None that I'm aware of. I did include under powers and duties, Article 2, Section 2. I did include number 6, which is help get information out to the neighborhoods about the city's master plans, which was in the second document, founding document 1357, and it never got included in our bylaws. Or actually, the bylaws were created just before that was added by City Council as another power and duties. So I included it there.
I also like that change. I think, again, we're splitting hairs here, but I would say maybe the city's adopted plans, because there can be adopted plans that aren't necessarily master plans.
I put in the exact text from Resolution 1357.
Okay.
So again, it would need to go to City Council for a change.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I do. Are we going to discuss the Robert's Rules of Orders? I'm guessing you're talking about coming to consensus without actually doing it through, when you said a parliamentarian. I mean, on the open space, we're working via consensus, not necessarily Robert's Rules of Orders, but I'm not sure what that means to change all of that.
Well, the reason I put that in there is because otherwise everything has to be done by Robert's Rules. All business has to be conducted by Robert's Rules, and there are no other options. So I wanted to include the option for other consensus models, which, I mean, in a judiciary board or something like that, you want to be efficient, you want to be respectful of everybody's time and the majority rules. Well, I think in our case, neighborhoods, we want to come to consensus. We want everybody to agree, not just to get 5 out of 9 votes.
That gets complicated. It's gotten complicated in open space, and we're having to go back and rehash out because we were not all sure what our consensus was, and so now we're going to have to go vote. I understand, only now do I understand what you're talking about, having gone through this at open space. And so I understand what you're saying, but in a sense of brevity and what we all understand, I'm all for keeping Robert's Rules of Order and hashing it out when we have that issue come up. That's my opinion, totally. But I get it. I would not have if I hadn't been on open space and we had this discussion, but I understand it.
Thanks, Sharon. I heard the bell from Bobette. I did see, Mike, do you want to jump in real quick I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, Mike Wasmer here. I guess I was just wondering, in reference to the socioeconomic diversity that's referenced in language, if that was only really a nod to the notion, because it's the only time I've heard it come up, is that a diversity of people who are renters and homeowners both, and that was the one of the key reasons for that.
That was sort of how I interpreted that as well, but I've been on NAC for 2.5 years plus a year in pandemic, so I still feel very new in some regards.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any other way to represent that as in any other kind of language, or if it's necessary. I just was wondering if there was anything more to it.
All right, so we are bumping up on time before we need to move on to our next item in new business. I also agree with Sharon that I would prefer to not get into the ball of wax in undoing Robert's rules in this. I don't know. I guess looking to you all, it sounds like we want to continue and finish discussing this at the next meeting to make a motion on a final draft at that point, or do we want to go over time for a few minutes and finish this up? Wendy, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that we table this and have an opportunity to go back after revisions and look at it one more time before a final vote.
Anyone else have any thoughts and feelings on that?
I would prefer to call the question, but I don't think it's in time. It's appropriate to do that while there's another motion waiting for a second.
Right. Mike?
The Neighborhood Hero working group has not met, so we do have an extra 5 minutes there.
Okay. I also understand wanting to get something squared away and finalized. I do think that if there needs to be more time to review and consider some of the discussion items that came up today, it's okay to move it to our June meeting. I would just strongly encourage folks to read through things when we're getting our meeting agenda packets from Brenda and making notes in advance so that we can come to our meetings with discussion points and questions and comments so that we can sort of streamline the process as much as possible. But Brenda and Joe too, if you're okay with it, just tabling it to the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have a final version to approve and adopt in June. Go ahead, Brenda. Sorry, Brenda, go ahead, please.
Yes, this is Brenda Mills. What we need to do, it would be nice to have a document that's typed out with any kind of highlighted changes. It's just easier to read. So Joe, do you want to take a stab at it, or would you like me to take a stab at it?
I can produce a document with
Okay.
the highlighted change, which I did. The one is in there has all the deletions and suggested changes and explanations.
Brenda, are you saying sort of one that looks like the final tracked changes version when all of those tracked changes are?
So we would type up a document. Basically, it would be typed up. You're going to always have Joe's document, which shows you where he's made his deletions. But if you accept all these, so say for example, you accept all these, what does that document look like? So that you can read it. So I think people kind of need both, right? So Joe, do you want to take a stab at it since you did a lot of the deep dive into this?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, great. Then that's awesome.
Great. Thank you, Joe. I do think, yeah, that'll be helpful to sort of see them side by side and also compare with what's existing and not marked up. So we'll add that to our June agenda, and we will move on to the Neighborhood Hero Working Group update, which Greta's out of town. Mike let us know that the working group has not been able to meet yet. We will, however, schedule for this year to honor the 2019 winner at our upcoming meeting in June. And then it's also my understanding that the application process for 2020 will begin on July 1st. And then we'll honor that person in September and then start the process for 2021 in November. Due January 2022 and on March 2022. Brenda, did I cover that? I hit that correctly?
You did perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Joe, I see your hand is raised. Please go ahead.
Why will the award be given at the NAC regular meeting instead of the city council meeting like previous awards have been given?
City council has not been doing any what do you call them, proclamations or anything. They've just been doing a working meeting. So I had asked about that. It's not available right now. And then where we are now in the year, if they were to go back in person in June, it's not enough time. So we talked about it at the retreat, that it'd be nice to go ahead and honor that person at this meeting. This next June meeting has live comment. So that person's neighborhood and other people can call in and provide comments. And you guys kind of intimated it was cool to do that. So if it's not, we can wait until council resumes in person, which I think is happening June, July timeframe, if you would like to.
This is Anna. Given the delay, just the inevitable delay of the past year and not being able to move forward with it, I'm fine with a June acknowledgement at the NAC meeting. Kim, I see your hands raised. Please go ahead.
I'm hearing some suggestions that we could honor both members and that there is a desire to do that in the council meeting, and I'm happy to carry that suggestion forward to the full council.
Oh, wonderful.
Whether or not we're able to accommodate it in our agenda, I know Brenda's already articulated that already, but I'm happy to support.
I would, yeah, I think that would be great. And if anybody else wants to go ahead and speak up, please do. Go ahead, Wendy.
This is Wendy Hayner. I think that would be wonderful, Kim, if that was a possibility to recognize this individual from the city council. That's will hopefully bring other people out of the woodwork to start stepping up and doing more for our city, and by recognizing these individuals. Thank you.
And I can't obviously guarantee that it would happen, but what I can do is carry forward the request and then let the chair know to circulate with this group when I have an answer.
Thank you, Kim. Brenda, I see your hands.
I will go ahead and fill out the form that we have. We have to complete a form to get on council's agenda. So I've already completed a form for this before we went down. And so I'll resubmit that and talk to Maggie as well. So thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim and Brenda both. All right. So at our April retreat, we also began talking about the neighborhood festival or conference or issues forum or all of the above, and how we want to move forward coming out of the past year. And so we had to table that discussion and want to bring that discussion back alive and talk about what you all feel is the best sort of path forward for scheduling or getting something on the books. So opening it up to you all. Brenda, please go ahead.
I'm sorry, I need to lower my hand.
No worries. No worries.
Apologies.
Wendy, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anna. This is Wendy Hayner. I would like to talk about the Neighborhood Festival Conference and look at our timeline to see when we would be able to put this together. We talked about the Martin Luther King Park, and that would be the location as to where it was going to be the previous year. I believe it was 2019 that they had planned on an event there. How long? And the person that was in charge of that at the time, I believe, was Babette, and she was working hard on it along with Greta. So I was wanting to know, how long do you think you need to be able to put this neighborhood festival into action and make it happen? Thank you.
You're asking me? When
Yeah.
did about it? It's me, Pastor Hardaway. I don't think Greta was on that. Me, Pastor Hardaway, Pat from Givens Estate. We would first have to get clearance from the city about using Martin Luther King Jr. Park. That was what Brenda was talking about. That's the first thing we would have to do. Everything else we had already set up, and I think that Brenda, if I'm not mistaken, Brenda, we had everything set up except we just didn't get to do it. Am I correct?
We were almost there. We weren't quite there, but we had plenty of time because we were looking at spring 2020, right?
Yeah.
We were working the prior year.
May. Yeah.
And we had 4 or 5 months to get stuff together. I would suggest, I just don't know about gatherings right now for 2021. So I'm thinking, because we're just trying to get ourselves back, into a normal routine, that maybe we shoot for spring of 2022.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. And then that gives you guys time to go ahead and meet, and then bring it back up. Just say, here's the proposal again. Here's what we're thinking about doing. And then if NAC is good, then give everybody a job and we go for it. And basically what had been planned was to have, which you used to do, I think the initial one, Joe, I don't know if you were at one of those, where neighborhoods would set up tables to kind of showcase their neighborhood, kind of the history of their neighborhood. And the whole theme that year, this year, was supposed to be get to know your neighbor. So the goal would be to walk around and, get to know the neighbors in the neighborhood, the different neighborhoods. So.
Sharon, I see your hand was raised. Please go ahead.
Muted.
Yep.
Sharon here. As an FYI, I'm on Easton Valley Neighborhood Association. We just had our meeting about 8 days ago, and there was an organization that was wanting a Juneteenth at MLK, and the city approached our neighborhood association to help them fix the concession stand there. So the concession stand is dilapidated and not available for any kind of use at this point. And so we're still in negotiation with the city and Easton Valley to try to get MLK into usability. So if we were wanting to use it, there's nothing available for food or anything else that the city has got because of the dilapidated mess that the concession stand is in. So if that was at all something we wanted to do, it's not available till it gets fixed. So I concur with Brenda that it's going to take a while to get that all organized and make that park worth having something there if we want to do it with food and drinks and as we normally do with things at MLK.
Wendy, please go ahead.
I would like to ask if there's a possibility to submit the records that were kept for that last neighborhood festival so we can preview it and see where we can make any changes and if there's going to be committee assigned. Thank you.
The record from the meeting?
Yes, from the organizational meetings on how the festival was going to be done.
Gotcha. So Brenda, that should be on the city website, right? Under the NAC meeting minutes and agendas. Would we be able to find that information there?
This is Brenda. Let me make sure I understand what Wendy's asking. Are you asking for the planning for this one we just had to cancel? She's just talking about some of the planning notes. So I can find those and kind of spruce them up and provide those to you. I'll be glad to do that.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Gotcha. Bobette, did you have a question or comment?
Well, I had my hand raised. I was just going to say that we were going to do things like different food trucks. And that was what we're going to do as far as, and bring them inside and people would be able to get that as far as, and so we were not anticipating using the concession stand, but we're not going to be ready till 2022. We also had, just to give you a little bit, we also had a connection with some games and stuff for youth so that they wouldn't be bored. They could be there while their parents and even every organization having maybe like they had mugs or some we could give prizes for people that go around to each one of the things. So, that kind of thing that we were, so you could showcase exactly what you do in all of your neighborhoods. Because that's what we're talking about, get to know your neighbor. And so I think that's what was in the works. And Brenda can give you that, so you'll see it.
Thanks, Bobette. This is Anna. It sounds like what I'm hearing from folks is that, yes, we want to go ahead and try to plan another Festival of Neighborhoods. It's probably not realistic to do so in person until potentially this time next year in 2022. But in order to kind of focus some of the energy and ideas, maybe it's an appropriate time to at least consider, if not this evening, form a planning group for that amongst some NAC members. I think previously, like Bobette says, there were maybe 3 folks on the Festival of Neighborhoods Planning Committee. And so just want to open that up for discussion and comment to see if that's how we want to move forward. Would anyone want to volunteer to be on the planning committee for the Festival of Neighborhoods in 2022?
Madam Chair, this is Brenda. Joe Fiacola has his hand raised.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I think it's premature to commit to that since we don't have a work plan for the year yet, for the upcoming year yet. I would prefer waiting until we had that plan in place and that was a part of it. It was integrated in with it.
Have we come up with against that in the past, Brenda? Do you know, since keeping in mind too that, I don't know, this is a draft plan, but also once the plan is adopted, it is still a living document that can be revised. I'm also just trying to be mindful of meetings, and if our monthly meeting schedule gets interrupted to where we potentially go back to bi-monthly meetings, it's a pretty involved task to plan an event like this.
Well, it's in your work plan to do something, plan an event. So you can write it in such a way that whatever you decide to do, you can hold it. You're going to approve your work plan in June. So I would suggest giving people time to think about would they like to participate, and then get your committee formed in June once you approve this work plan. But it is in your plan. You don't have to be as specific and give a specific date. It's in your plan
Mhm.
to do something.
Okay, great, good deal. Well, we can continue the conversation then into our June meeting. But yeah, please consider thinking about if you would like to be on a planning committee for next year's Festival of Neighborhoods. I do also want to talk about the issues forum. That was sort of lumped into that new business item, and opening that up to discussion as well. Back in summer of 2019, we had two. One was focused on traffic, which was a lot of stuff ultimately comes down to traffic. But then one was also focused on noise, because the city was going through amendments to its noise ordinance at that time. We held those in person. However, I do think that if this is something we want, thank you, Babette.
That's not me, but your time, you have time. It's only
Oh,
6, and if you're going on to something else, you've got time.
okay.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. There's a lot to manage during virtual meetings. Anyways, I think that this is something that if we wanted to do in 2021, there's potential to host it virtually, and have it be successful and accessible to folks virtually. So just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe get comments on that, and like Brenda said, maybe continue to discuss in June. But Brenda, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's a lot being done in the way around development and how neighborhoods are communicated. That's the big issue right now. Beyond noise is development, and planning and development services are looking at, training, getting out in the community, talking to people about how they can find out about development, working with developers about, scheduling their meetings, on a calendar. So it might be a good thing once some of that stuff is in place to go out. If you get your work plan approved in June, if you want to do it virtually, so you have presentations by different departments on development, then you can do it virtually this fall, because that doesn't require you to meet anywhere or be anywhere. You could just do it there. And then if you wanted to follow up with something else later in person, you could. So, the sky's the limit. I think you have to decide which issues, you'd like to, and you can have a list of them and then just call a meeting. I think that would be great. It's a great way to connect with neighborhoods, for you guys to kind of reach out to your networks and things of that nature. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Brenda. I do think finding a way to focus in on some sort of development aspect would be something that's not only helpful for folks to come together and provide comment and feedback on, but I think for us as a committee as well to become, I think, better versed in the ins and outs of those processes would be great. I'm not sure I know quite yet what that focus might look like. I do also think that traffic is always timely, and there are always traffic issues. And that's another possibility that we could bring to the table. But I see your hand, Sharon, so please go ahead. Sharon, go ahead and unmute, please.
God, I'm ignorant. Sorry, it's Sharon. I don't know. I think I missed something. Are you talking about a working group or a subcommittee?
No, we actually had, well, there was a working group formed in NAC to sort of actually, and maybe the working group was just formed to provide a sort of debrief of everything. It's been a couple of years, but ultimately, NAC had a day or a morning at AB Tech that was sort of just an open forum for the public to come and sit down and talk about anything traffic related that they wanted to talk about, and to kind of to document all of those things, work through and find trends and issues, and then talk about our findings and ultimately deliver information to city staff and council as well.
I see. So we're talking about doing it as a virtual meeting. I'm on the subcommittee or working group on CAN on the neighborhood issue that Brenda was talking about on how we're trying to change development meetings. And we're working extensively. So I have got a good amount of information on where we're headed on that, working with city staff and people on the government relations on CAN. So I'd be willing to volunteer the knowledge of because we're working now. So by the time that comes, it should formulate change in the UDO, and we'll have something that is in concrete to give to the neighbors or neighborhoods by that time. And I volunteer to do that when that comes about, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person.
Great. I mean, that would be wonderful. I do think that sort of the first step again is just figuring out what that sort of issue topic is going to be. And we don't have to decide today. Again, we want to wait for our work plan to be finalized. And yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
So to come up with the topic, then the work plan we'll list, and then we can discuss the topic and what that looks like. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
So yeah, I think ideally we can continue this conversation and move towards some ideas collectively on what those issues might look like at our June meeting, and continue that movement forward. Anybody, any other questions or comments before we move on to NAC member updates on other boards? All right. So Sharon and I are serving on the Open Space Task Force, and I'm also the NAC liaison to the Multimodal Transportation Commission. First, we'll start with Open Space Task Force updates since our last April meeting. Sharon, I do have some notes jotted down, but do you want to go ahead and sort of give a brief synopsis of the past 2 or 3 open space meetings and where we're at?
We're working on CBD and the fact that it's never been required to have open space. And we on NAC and in the Urban Forestry Commission have said that open space is really needed to combat the heat island effect that we have downtown, and that open space is not just a place to have chairs and tables, that it can be green infrastructure, it can be permeable paving, it can be catchment basins for water, because we have no stormwater plan really in downtown. And we're working with developers, we're working with NAC and P&Z, and we've got all these boards and commissions involved. And so today we had a working group meeting regarding street trees in downtown. And we've kind of come up with a consensus that we will forego the need to have open space in CBD if we beef up what street trees are given for their root viability, so that we have trees that look like trees in downtown as opposed to trees that look like dead sticks and don't do what trees are supposed to do. So we've had a couple meetings on what it's going to look like to give a tree the required root structure it needs for cubic feet, and how the city and the developers are willing to put in things like what's called a silvocell, which allows trees to have more viable root system to become trees, and are costly, but it is in lieu of a fee in lieu for open space, or requiring open space. So what we're doing is we're negotiating what downtown looks like. We've also stated that we want open space in River Arts District, where it's right now not required. And the argument's been, well, there's open space all downtown, all in RAD, and we say now, but that doesn't mean that's what the future is going to look like. So we're talking about the different overlay districts that are in the RAD, and how they can accommodate open space areas that aren't necessarily amenity areas. Amenity being a place for tables and chairs, but there's actually buffer areas between, I'm going to say apartments for our condos, that we've got some green space in between, even though we've got a river on one side of us, and that constitutes open space to a lot of people. And then we're talking about making buffers that are trees and spaces that are now or required, and give developers credit for those to be open space, because the more green and the more space we have, that should be constitute an open space. Once again, not necessarily a place for tables and chairs. So we're getting down into more of the specificity of what does open space look like. I'm making it really simple because it's, again, very complicated, but those are some of the points that we're working on specifically right at the moment.
Thank you, Sharon. You say you're making it simple. That was a much more detailed explanation than what I had ready to go. So thank you for that. Our next meeting, Sharon's been able to make more of them than I have, but I'm hopeful that city reached out to different committees asking for at least just one person. So I'm glad that we've got two folks that, if I can't make it, at least Sharon is always there. But the next task force meeting is this Wednesday. And so a lot of the draft amendments have been made and reviewed, but like Sharon said, I think a lot of people were uncomfortable with saying those were ready to have a bow put on them. So we're still going to be talking through some of the unresolved issues, many of which Sharon brought up. So we'll keep you posted at our next meeting. Sharon, do you have any more to add?
No, I think it will have a couple more meetings. I think part of the problem is we had this consensus, and we didn't all quite understand consensus. We're more waiting to have a vote like at Robert's Rules of Order. So none of us really actually raised our hand. Are you for or are you against? And so this is why we've got more discussion going on. And I do believe we're probably going to have a few more meetings before we get it all nailed down. That's my opinion on it. It could be nailed down quicker than I think.
This is Anna, right? And I think also, as we're sharing sort of updates from these other commissions or boards or task forces, if any of you have any input or comments or questions that you want us to relay to these other committees or groups, now is definitely the time to do it, or via email. But it's always really helpful to get as much input as we can to take back. So with that said, I'll transition to updates for the Multimodal Transportation Commission. I was unable to attend the April meeting due to being out of town for work, so I haven't yet reviewed the recorded version of that meeting or had access to the meeting minutes. But at the March meeting, I think, multimodal, they're wanting to hopefully have staff from planning and urban design or the development services department really come and talk and break down the existing unified development ordinance, which is basically just the code that the city has to follow, all of the rules the city has to follow regarding land use and beyond, as it relates to sidewalk development. That's a pretty hot topic among the Multimodal Transportation Commission, and figuring out how we can get more sidewalks and also make the city as pedestrian friendly as possible. So hopefully we'll be getting a presentation from staff on that in the near future. And then another thing that I know I need to follow up with fellow commission members is a conversation conversations that are happening regarding multimodal safety along the Merriman Avenue corridor. That stretch of road comes up all of the time. We had a meeting where there were multiple public comments that were raised about the safety on that roadway and the surrounding areas. It's complicated because it's an NCDOT road, so there needs to be good relationship building and partnership between the city and NCDOT to make sure that we're getting workable solutions, but also that DOT is listening to what the city wants, and the city's asking for things that DOT can actually do. There is a resurfacing schedule for that road that is set to occur in the near future. And I know that folks are really advocating for safety improvements and potentially a road diet. So representatives from the MMTC met with both the city and NCDOT shortly after April meeting, but I don't know the outcome of that meeting specifically. So hopefully I'll have more to report in June. So that's all I've got. Which now, Joe, I see your hands raised, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious if there's been any progress on the corridor studies of Tunnel Road and Hendersonville Road that the planning was supposed to be working on.
Yes, there have been. Unfortunately, I can't speak off the cuff to that. I can't remember if the Tunnel Road presentation happened at our April multimodal meeting or not. I just can't remember off the top of my head that agenda, but I can go back and look and definitely pull any information for you. And I also believe the Hendersonville Road one is wrapping up very soon. Brenda, I don't know. Brenda and or Kim, I don't know if you have any additional information. Brenda.
Thank you, Anna. This is Kim. That was a good report back from Multimodal. I will say that the corridor study conversation is ongoing. There is a French Broad MPO or French Broad River MPO meeting coming up on May 27th at 1 p.m. I can send the link around for anyone who's interested in following the conversation on corridor studies there as well.
Thank you, Kim. Wendy, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you. This is Wendy Hayner. Anna, on the Multimodal Transportation Commission, could you address the skid pads that are supposed to be installed at the beginning of each sidewalk as it transitions from the street to the sidewalk? Is there any addressing that? Because of so many of the neighborhoods have some, but then they don't have, they're missing some. So I'm just wondering the outcome.
So you're asking about what I think they're called truncated domes that are on the curb ramps. And I only know this because I'm actually working in this in like my professional role. But those are actually for the longest time, I thought they were for pedestrians, like anti-skid. They're actually for folks who are visually impaired, who can detect those if they have some sort of walking assistance, so that they can delineate the transition between a sidewalk and a roadway, and know when and if to navigate that safely, or hopefully safely. I do know that the city is currently working with consultants on the GAP plan, which is the Greenway Accessibility and Pedestrian sort of master plan, where they're oftentimes those three components are done separately as like a Greenway master plan, an ADA accessibility transition plan, and then a pedestrian master plan. But they're rolling all of it together to make it a really comprehensive sort of document and plan outcome. And I do know that that information is collected as part of the ADA aspect of that. I do think that one thing that might be interesting and also really beneficial to NAC is to have city staff maybe come and give us an update on the GAP plan and see where they're at with things, and then also give us an opportunity to ask questions like that where they'll have some more detailed answers.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Any other questions before I think that, hold on just a second.
There's a timer.
Yeah, I did hear a timer. That wraps it up for everything. Sorry, I'm toggling back and forth. We'll move now to our final item, just acknowledging our next regular meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, June 28th, 2020. It says June 27th. I checked my calendar. The Monday is the 28th. So made that change. And that'll be at 5 p.m. and it remains remote. And it's also, just a reminder that NAC will begin to take live comments at that meeting. So if folks have questions about that, you can always check the city's engagement hub for more directions on how to participate in live comment. And so with that, I will now adjourn the meeting unless there are any objections.
I would like to ask if Brenda could arrange to have someone come and speak to us about the sidewalks at our next meeting, if that's a possibility.
I will certainly ask Miss Lucy Crown and her team if they could come and do a presentation. I'm working with Anna to get development services here. It all depends. We're getting into June, so we're getting the people's vacation schedules. But I will send her an email first thing in the morning. I'll be glad to. If not June, we'll do July. Okay.
That'll be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I apologize. I glossed over the agenda items for next meeting. Joe, please go ahead.
Yes, one of our things on the work plan was to check additional attendance at other boards and commissions. I've looked over the list, and there are a lot of commissions and boards that really don't have a neighborhood impact, like Board of Electrical Examiners or the Audit Committee don't really affect neighborhoods directly. I'd like to take a closer look at that list and see which ones are potentially helpful for us to attend, rather than just saying other boards and commissions. Find specific ones that that would be useful for us to hear from.
I hear that. So under the additional attendance at other boards and commissions in the work plan, just maybe being a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted. I skipped around and now I'm off kilter, but one last call for comments or objections. I keep hitting my mute button. Sorry. All right. So adjourned our meeting. Thank you everyone for attending. Joe, look forward to seeing you in June, and hope Pastor Hardaway can be there in June as well to give you all a big thank you and send off. And our meeting will be muted, and I'll go ahead and let the city staff take care of that. So have a good night, everyone.
Good night.